One of the most frustrating aspects of the sales process is the mystery of it all. It's difficult sometimes to really get a sense of whether someone is going to hire us or not. And especially if we are, trying to project some revenue for that month or that quarter, and we're looking at the people in our funnel and we're looking at the people that we're having conversations with, sometimes it's easy to just draw just kind of be uh like a deer in headlights about what is actually going to happen. It's frustrating. It's scary. So today I want to talk about 3 ways that you can establish whether the prospects that you're in conversation with are actually going to hire you or not, right? What if we could know whether they're going to hire you or not? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. This is the Thrive Biz Chat, where I talk about what it really takes to run a thriving service business. I'm Selena Guerrero. I'm also founder of the Thrive Sales Accelerator, where I help ambitious CEOs, owners, founders get to the next level of their business by helping them implement marketing and sales systems and really optimize that so that they can thrive and run a business they love. So, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. I would say, first of all, that some of this is in our control. Okay. Some of what, understanding whether someone's going to hire us or not is in our control. And those are the parts I'm going to talk about today. Okay. You don't always know what's going on behind the scene. There are certain things that people don't share with you. There are certain unexpected things like people leaving their jobs or people losing their jobs or changes in leadership. Like, so many different things could be going on, right? They meet a competitor and somehow they have they hire somebody else. There are certain things that are not in our control in terms of understanding if someone's going to hire us or not. Okay, but essentially, at the end of the day, there are 3 things with a bonus number 4 that I'm going to talk through that can really help you understand if someone's going to hire you or not. Okay. And the first one is, I'll just say, sorry, I should give a little quick overview. These are 3, what we call sort of qualifying criteria, things that are 100% essential that have to be in place for someone to hire you. Okay. They're called qualifying criteria, and there are a number of them, but I like to focus on the 3 sort of top line qualifiers. Okay. What is a qualifying criteria? Such a fancy word. Okay. It's really just saying what needs to be in place for this person to be able to hire me. And those 3 things are, number 1, budget. They've got to have money because they're going to hire you. You've got to be speaking with the person making the decision that can actually spend that money, that budget. And you also need often at some sort of sense of urgency or timeline around that, right? They might hire you, but it doesn't really help you if they're going to hire you next year. Or they're, this is not what we're talking about, right? You need to know within the next 30 days, whether someone's going to hire you, because you want to know about revenue. And you also need to make sure that you're spending time with people that are going to hire you, right? Like you have limited time and you have limited resources. And that's why this is so critical. The mystery piece of it can be taken out if you focus on these 3 things. And then I'm going to give you a bonus tip. Okay. So first of all, you need to know if they have a budget. And a lot of people don't like to talk about money. And sometimes the money talk is challenging, but I just want to say, I'm going to really give you some specific questions that you can ask. There's like a lot of ways to do this, but just to kind of give you a sense. So you can say things like, is this something you're ready to invest in? If you're selling to a company, it could be, which department holds the budget for this project? Have you discussed or thought about budget? Okay, that's it. You just have to ask the question. It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard. And I find that in the sales conversations, some of it is just knowing what to say. It's just like, what are the words that should be coming out of my mouth in order to meet my objective, which is to understand if this person has money to pay me or not. Okay. So those are 3 questions. I'm going to repeat those. Is this something you're ready to invest in? Which department holds the budget for this project? And have you discussed or thought about budget? So it's a little open-ended, right? You can just get a sense, okay? Now I want to say this really is your responsibility. No one is going to ask this question except for you. Okay, the person on the other side probably doesn't want to talk about budget either. They're like afraid it's going to be like way out of their, price range. They're like, they don't know either. They probably haven't hired somebody like you before, right? Like people often buy things that they don't buy every day. So that's a big question about how much it is. So they may not bring it up. So it is your responsibility. And all you have to do is ask one of those 3 questions. So let's say they kind of say they have a budget, whatever that looks like. And so, check. Okay. They have basically said, I have a budget. Now you can say, if the alternative, I just want to quickly comment, you can say something like an estimate for this work is between this and this, right? Depending on X, Y, Z, right? The cost is between X and Y. Does that meet your expectations? Okay. And so if you just simply say that, then they aren't as afraid to answer the question. Okay. So number 1, check. They have a budget. Okay. Your responsibility. Okay. Number 2, let's say they have a budget. They still need to have a sense of urgency. Okay. And how do we know as a salesperson if that person is really like, if this is urgent for them, if they have a timeline, is this a want or is this a need? Right. And so the second way to know if your prospect's going to hire you is to understand if they have a timeline or any sense of urgency. So I'm going to give you 3 questions that explain that like will help you hit your criteria, check the box. Okay. So when would you like to start this project? Here's another one. Do you have a date you'd like the project to be completed? So like you're looking ahead, right? You're looking towards, you're not forcing them, but you're trying to get them to look into the future and assess, when does this have to be done and what's the timeline? And then have you discussed or thought about timing? I mean, that's it. That's all you have to ask. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. Okay. And again, so much about sales for people who don't do this regularly is they don't know what to say. What are the words I need to say? So I'm going to repeat those 2. Okay. When would you like to start? Do you have a date you would like this project to be completed? And just really open-ended. Have you discussed or thought about timing? Okay. Right. I mean, there's so many other questions which I could go through, but just essentially understanding that if once you get an answer to that, you can essentially get a percentage chance of like how important this is to them. If they say, oh yeah, we want this done by the end of December, you're like, okay, good. I'm in a better position now. Okay. And then the third, okay, so I just want to say the timeline is that second piece of criteria. That second, like you need to check the box because they're not going to hire you if there's no sense of urgency. They're not going to hire you if they don't have a budget. And the third thing they're going to need, you must absolutely have in place for them to hire you is to be talking to the decision maker. Okay. So what that means is sometimes there'll be an assistant, or sometimes there'll be a spouse, or sometimes there'll be somebody who is running the sort of running the buying process, but somebody else has to finally approve. It could be like a whole team of people. Okay, so really, who is this person that's going to be able to say, yes, let's spend the money on you? And I'm going to share some questions with you. Who else is involved in this decision? Okay, or is there anyone else involved in this decision? Right? You don't want to like pretend like you want to make sure they know that you think that they're super important, but you do need to assess if there's anybody else involved. Okay. You could look at sort of like historical evidence, if you will. So like who's been involved in this and making these types of decisions in the past, and these types of hiring decisions in the past. Okay. And what's nice about that is you're not just saying like, look, I know you're not actually making the decision. Who else? Get out of my way. I need to talk to the person who's in charge, right? Like you're not saying that. So you just say like, historically, who's made these decisions? If you really need to tread lightly, that's a good one. Or you could say, oh, there's so many juicy questions. You could say, is there anybody else we should be speaking with who's part of this decision moving forward? Okay. So those are three super, super extraordinarily simple questions. Okay. And so if you ask any of those, you will understand. They'll say, oh, well, actually, my boss, Jane, blah, 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 blah. She needs to be, okay, well, let's get her on the car. Let's get her part of the conversation. Right. And if they say, well, I'm not really ready, then you're like, okay, then you know better that this is not going to go through, because if you don't have access to Jane, if you don't have approval from Jane, what's going to happen? They're not going to hire you. Okay. All right. So those are the three things that you really need to know if someone is going to hire you. Okay. So, but the only way you're going to find out is if you ask. Okay. So I've given you some really good questions around establishing budget. Do they have money? Are you timeline, necessity versus want, right? Need versus want, urgency. Like, are they writing you back? Are they trying to set up the next meeting? Are you seeing that? And then third, are you speaking with the person that's actually making the decision? And you probably not, 100% of the time need that person's approval. You need to have access to that person. Okay. So just ask those questions and then you'll know. So if I'm saying, how will you know if someone is going to hire you? That's how. Ask about budget, ask about timeline, ask about decision maker. Okay. And I have one bonus question for you. Okay. Sometimes in order to find out if someone's going to hire you or not, you just need to ask. Okay. So here's the last phrase. Based on everything we've discussed, would you like to work together? Would you like to work together? That's it. Okay. So sometimes you just need to ask. And then they'll say, well, you know what? I need blah, 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 blah. Or I'm doing this, that. And then you know if they're going to hire you or not. Now, eventually you're going to find out, maybe they just don't know yet. But honestly, folks, it can really be this simple. It can really be this simple. Okay. So I have something for you. It is called the Sales Call Phrases Cheat Sheet. And it is, I think, an amazing resource for you to navigate conversations successfully. Okay. And some of the questions that I asked here are all of the questions that I just presented to you are all in this document, but then there's a ton of other questions in lots of different categories and lots of different situations for you to be successful and move forward and to understand if someone's going to hire you or not, to make the best impression, to ask the right questions. You as in that sales conversation, as a salesperson, are really sort of an excavator, right? You need to ask the right questions to understand what their problem is so you can respond in a way that says, yes, this is how we help that. You need to ask the questions to find out if they have budget and timeline, and you're talking to the decision maker. Okay. So this document has over 50 questions. And the reason there's so many is simply, and they're all in categories, right? And they're all in categories that basically say, okay, if you're in this situation, here are some questions to ask. And the reason that there are multiple is that people like to communicate in different ways, right? Different industries, some are more casual, some are more formal. Okay. And so they give you lots of different ways, but they give you the words you need to assess if someone's going to hire you or not. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and let me know what you think about these questions, whether you've used any. Has it been helpful? Are there other questions that you particularly like? And what do you do to learn if someone is going to hire you or not? I hope you'll share that with me. You can always message me on your favorite social media channel. And my website is selinagura.com. I'll leave that in the comments. And of course, I will leave the link right now for the Sales Call Phrases Cheat Sheet. Download it today. It's going to really help you. That's all I have today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.